Before we plunge into the gripping tale that awaits us today, let me take a moment to remind you that over 90% of our audience enjoys our videos yet hasn't hit that subscribe button. If this content resonates with you, please take a moment to click that subscribe button and enable notifications, ensuring you never miss an update. If this tale captivates your imagination, be sure to show your appreciation by liking the video. It truly aids our efforts. Nora here, and I've shared the journey of marriage with my husband Adam for more than 14 years. Our paths crossed in college, a tale often recounted at reunions, evoking warm smiles and nostalgic reflections. In those days, he exuded charm, possessed a sharp wit, harbored great ambition, and seemed unwaveringly confident in his direction. I was the more reserved individual, intent, gentle in speech, and inclined towards a sense of steadiness. We complemented one another in ways that felt right in that moment. We tied the knot in our youth, perhaps a touch too early. I was merely 23, while Adam was 25. In those formative years, we navigated a landscape of rented apartments, student loans, ramen dinners, and the occasional squabble over whose turn it was to tackle the dishes. Yet, amidst it all, we cherished one another, or so I believed. As we reached our mid-30s, the landscape of our lives had transformed. Adam had forged a prosperous path in the world of finance, while I had chosen to pause my own journey to nurture our two children, Hazel and Elliot. Initially, I found myself at ease with that choice. I convinced myself that being present for the children was a noble pursuit, that my unwavering presence in their lives would hold greater value than any salary could offer. Yet, gradually and almost imperceptibly, I began to lose fragments of my very essence. The days started to meld together, indistinguishable from one another. In the quiet of early mornings, the ritual of packing lunches begins. School drop-offs mark the start of a busy day, followed by the meticulous crafting of grocery lists. Meal preps take shape, all while late nights loom on the horizon. Amidst Adam's relentless business trips and the endless cadence of board meetings, our conversations drifted away from the things that truly mattered. Dialogue evolved into progress reports. Embraces evolved into rituals. The warmth of intimacy dwindled, supplanted by the intricate demands of family life. I did not hold him solely responsible. We allowed the space between us to expand. Yet, what pained me the most was the overwhelming sense of being invisible. Then, as spring unfurled its petals, a transformation began to take shape. It was at that moment that Owen returned to the house next door. He had spent his childhood just 2 houses away, the sole offspring of the Learys, who had been our steadfast neighbors for many years. Owen came to mind as a vibrant, spirited child, perpetually engaged in kicking a soccer ball or cycling alongside a group of other boys. Upon reaching the age of 18, he departed for college in California, and for many years, his presence faded from our lives. Yet, following the death of his mother, he returned, now at the age of 23, newly graduated, and tending to his father, whose health was failing. When our paths crossed once more, he was busy unloading boxes from a U-Haul. As I was pruning the hedges in the front yard, there was a fleeting moment when I failed to recognize him. He stood tall, with broad shoulders, exuding that effortless confidence that often accompanies youth in their 20s. Upon catching sight of me, a smile graced his lips. "Mrs. Owens?" he inquired. I chuckled softly. "You mustn't refer to me in that manner." "It makes me sound ancient," he said with a grin. "Apologies, Nora, then?" That was the moment it all began. A simple smile, a name, a chance to reconnect. In the days that came after, our paths would cross frequently. He would tend to the lawn for his father, take their dog for a stroll, and occasionally settle on the porch, engrossed in a book or chatting on the phone. We exchanged the customary niceties that neighbors often share, discussions about the weather, updates on the news, and a mutual grievance regarding the delays in garbage collection. Nothing out of the ordinary. It was during the height of summer that our dialogues began to stretch into the realm of the profound. One afternoon, I found myself wrestling with a malfunctioning sprinkler head in the backyard. Adam was absent, as he often was, and the thought of summoning a plumber for such a trivial issue felt unnecessary. Owen spotted him from his porch and approached. "Need help?" he offered. After a moment of uncertainty, I gave a slight nod. It's quite the predicament. I've been grappling with this for 20 minutes now. He knelt beside me, his hands deftly manipulating the pipe. I observed him, captivated by his concentration, his patience, and even finding a hint of humor in my own vexation. In mere moments, the sprinkler coughed and sprang back to life. "There," he remarked, wiping the soil from his hands. "Not so hard." "Easy for you to say," I chuckled. In that instant, a shift occurred. It lacked the flair of drama or the clarity of the obvious, yet I sensed it deeply. A delicate change in the atmosphere whenever he entered the room. He would wave whenever he spotted me tending to the garden, lingering a bit longer in our conversations, inquiring about my well-being with a sincerity that went beyond mere pleasantries. And I discovered that my response came not merely from a place of courtesy, but from a deeper, more profound impulse. Something I was unprepared to label. Anticipation grew within me at the thought of our next encounter. Whenever I baked, I would always make sure to bring some extra for him and his father. As I strolled outside, my eyes would drift toward their porch, hoping to catch a glimpse of him. It lacked any semblance of romance. Not at this moment. I reassured myself that it wasn't. It was a blend of focus and compassion. Someone recognizing my worth beyond my contributions to others. Then, one fateful afternoon in late August, an event occurred that shifted the balance. The sun blazed overhead, casting a warm glow as the children gathered at a friend's abode. As I lounged on the porch, sipping iced tea and engrossed in my book, Owen approached, a folder clutched in his hand. "Hello," he remarked. "Would you mind if I tapped into your thoughts on a particular matter?" He shared that he was in the process of applying to graduate schools and sought input on his personal statement. I felt a warm sense of pride. He recalled that I had once taught English before I decided to stay home. We lingered for more than an hour, delving into the depths of his essay, aspirations, and visions for the future. He absorbed every word, inquired thoughtfully, and restored my sense of significance. After a moment, he reclined slightly and remarked, "You ought to continue this, Nora. Instructing, I mean. You're too smart to not be out there." I glanced at him, taken aback. "It's been years. I wouldn't even know where to start." "Well, you'd excel at it. That's obvious." It wasn't merely the words themselves. It was the manner in which he uttered them, sincere and unguarded, as if he perceived something within me that I had long since buried. That night, sleep eluded me. His voice echoed in my mind, and I recalled the way he gazed at me, not with pity, nor with mere politeness, but with a deep, authentic admiration. It awakened feelings within me that I had long kept hidden. In the weeks that followed, our paths crossed more frequently. He would drop by with his dog in tow, inquiring about my garden, presenting me with a book he believed would capture my interest. Each visit bore a purpose, a delightful pretext. Yet, I believe we both understood the reality. We never transgressed any boundaries in a physical sense. However, the emotional boundaries? They faded away more swiftly than I was ready to confront. One evening, as we lingered in my backyard, the sun dipping below the horizon, he spoke softly, "You seem lonely sometimes." I found myself at a loss for words. I sought to reject the truth, to feign that all was well. Yet I found myself unable to do so, not alongside him. At times, I conceded. He nodded, then turned his gaze toward me, a blend of sorrow and comprehension reflected in his eyes. "You deserve more than just being someone's background character, Nora." That sentence lingered in my thoughts. It reverberated as I prepared dinner, as I folded clothes, as I sat in the stillness of the house after the children had drifted off to sleep. I began to scrutinize everything. Had I truly chosen this life, or had I merely settled into it? Adam sensed the change, albeit faintly. He was consumed by his work, engulfed in meetings, lost in an unending stream of emails and deadlines. He would inquire if all was well, but only as an afterthought. I confided in him about my fatigue. He merely nodded, his attention drifting back to his phone. Owen, however, was different. He truly listened. He illuminated my existence, made me feel significant. I was adrift, uncertain of my actions, lacking any real plans. I had no intentions of leaving, betraying, or causing ruin. I was merely adrift, and he brought me back to shore. Yet, amidst the serene delight of our bond, I sensed I was treading a precarious line. A single miscalculation could unravel it all. I reassured myself that it was innocuous. It was merely friendship, a connection that breathed life back into my weary soul. Yet, beneath the surface, an unsettling truth lingered. I sensed that this innocence was destined to fade. The subsequent days unfolded in a haze of muted bewilderment. I found myself perpetually assessing my actions, scrutinizing their appearance and significance. I hadn't committed any overt transgressions, at least not by traditional standards. Yet, a whisper within me sensed I was nearing a threshold from which retreat might be impossible. I began to distance myself from Owen, deliberately stepping back, crafting a void between us. I convinced myself it was for the greater good. I found myself needing to shift my attention to Adam, to the children, to the life I had carefully constructed. I believed that by channeling my energy into the daily rhythms, into my marriage, the emotions I harbored would dissipate like mist under the warmth of the sun. Yet, feelings do not simply vanish at will. In my exploration of space, I discovered that it doesn't merely dissolve connections. At times, it amplifies them. Owen remained steadfast, not pressing forward. He maintained a respectful distance, his politeness evident. Yet I sensed the shift in his demeanor. His waves became brief, his smiles diminished. Though his visits became less frequent, when our gazes crossed over the fence or from our porches, an unspoken connection lingered in the air. We both sensed the void. Meanwhile, life at home carried on, seemingly unchanged. Adam continued to toil away for long hours, perpetually weary and unfocused. He had begun to spend some nights in the guest room, citing back pain or a need for improved rest. I chose not to contest it. We had acclimated to the distance. It had seeped in gradually over the years, rendering it almost familiar. Yet it was anything but normal, not quite. The children, fortunately, stayed blissfully oblivious. They were still at an age where they could immerse themselves in their own small realms of assignments and weekend adventures. I maintained the facade, preparing their lunches, assisting with school projects, and offering my support from the sidelines at Hazel's soccer games and Elliot's piano recitals. Yet, beneath the surface, I was coming apart. One evening, Adam returned home later than expected. As the clock approached midnight, I found myself perched on the couch, a book resting in my lap, its pages untouched for the last 20 minutes. He entered, keys clattering against the counter, and let out a weary sigh. "Apologies, it's been a long day." I nodded in understanding. "It seems you've been experiencing quite a few of those recently." He settled into the chair opposite me, his fingers pressing against his weary eyes. "I understand. It's been relentless. The new clients are truly a challenge." We lingered in silence for several moments. The distance between us felt vast, frigid, laden with unspoken words. "Do you ever feel like we're merely roommates?" I inquired abruptly, my tone softer than I had meant it to be. He looked up, astonished. "What?" "I mean, we're merely coexisting, navigating the routine." He frowned. "Where is this coming from?" "I don't know," I replied, though I did. "I suppose I simply miss the art of conversation, truly engaging in dialogue." He let out a deeper sigh, a sound heavy with the weight of his thoughts. "Nora, I'm truly trying. The demands of work are just too much. The children depend on us. We cannot afford to spend our evenings dissecting the intricacies of our marriage." I gazed at him, and for a fleeting instant, it felt as though I was gazing upon a stranger. "I'm not requesting a seminar, Adam. What I seek is a conversation." He rose, moving back and forth. "What is it that you expect me to express? An apology for my fatigue? A suggestion to abandon my job and spend endless hours on the porch with you?" That hurt, not due to its harshness, but because it felt trivializing. I wasn't seeking the world. I inquired about something. "No, y responda gently. I simply wish to feel as though you truly see me." For a fleeting moment, his expression wavered, caught in the delicate balance between guilt and defensiveness. Yet, Rather than uttering a word, he turned and left the room. That night, I found myself gazing at the ceiling, lost in thought long after silence enveloped the house. My thoughts continually drifted back to Owen, to the way he would truly listen when I spoke. He never made me feel as though my requests were excessive. The following day, I carried on with my routine as if nothing had changed. Amidst the flurry of errands, the cleaning, and the dinner preparations, I unexpectedly found myself outside in the late afternoon, tending to the bushes that lined the fence separating our yards. It was a spontaneous moment, not one I had planned. At least that's what I reassured myself. Yet, when I caught sight of Owen on his porch, headphones snugly in place, lost in the world of his sketchbook, my heart fluttered unexpectedly. I paused for a moment, then lifted my hand in a tentative wave. He glanced upward, a smile breaking across his face as he removed his headphones. "Hey, stranger." I returned the smile. "Greetings." He approached, halting a short distance from my position. "You've been hard to find." "I understand," I replied, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear. I just needed a moment to gather my thoughts. He nodded slowly in response. Did it help? I can't say for certain. A lengthy silence lingered, not awkward, but brimming with unvoiced thoughts. "Would you like to take a walk?" he inquired abruptly. "Just a short distance away, nothing of great consequence." I paused for a moment, then gave a nod. "All right." We strolled in silence initially, the autumn air sharp and the sky adorned with the soft colors of early evening. Leaves crunched beneath our feet, and the world seemed to hold its breath, tranquil in a manner that facilitated contemplation. "You're not crazy, you know," he finally remarked. I gazed at him. For what purpose? For the sensation of being unseen. For yearning for something beyond merely existing in a routine. I exhaled, my breath a ghostly wisp in the crisp air. At times, it feels as though I am adrift in the center of my existence, unnoticed by those around me. He halted his steps, pivoting to meet my gaze. "I perceive you." The words lingered in the space that separated us. Uncomplicated, truthful, risky. I chose not to reply. I was unable to. A constriction gripped my throat, and a sting welled in my eyes. I averted my gaze, attempting to conceal the surge of feeling that arose without warning. He made no move to intrude. Instead, he lingered beside me, silently providing a sensation I hadn't experienced in years. Presence. That night, I perched on the edge of my bed, tears streaming down my cheeks. It wasn't due to any wrongdoing on my part. Rather, it was the unsettling awareness of my heart's wandering and the helplessness that accompanied it. The weeks that followed were steeped in an atmosphere of palpable tension. I attempted to steer clear of Owen once more, yet this time it seemed utterly unattainable. The bond we shared had transcended ambiguity and doubt. It had become tangible. In attempting to suppress it, I only fueled its power. He never uttered a word out of line, never laid a hand on me, yet all aspects of our connection seemed like a delicate thread pulled taut, poised to break. One afternoon, he placed a book on my porch, a novel we had discussed in one of our earlier exchanges. Inside, there was a note. "In moments when the cacophony of the world becomes overwhelming, one finds solace in silence." I found myself seated with a book resting on my lap, gazing at his handwriting, acutely aware that the barriers I had meticulously constructed were disintegrating more swiftly than I could mend them. Thus, I returned to the pages of a journal, a practice I had long abandoned since my college days. Every ounce of my being spilled onto those pages. My bewilderment, my remorse, my yearning, my trepidation. I chronicled the life I envisioned for myself and the woman I had transformed into. Amidst the turmoil, a singular truth emerged with clarity. I found myself emotionally intertwined with another, a connection that transcended the physical realm. Though I had not crossed that particular line, in every significant aspect, I had ventured beyond the sacred confines of my marriage. One evening, Adam and I shared a meal in a hushed atmosphere. The children were away at their grandparents' for the weekend, presenting a rare chance for us to reconnect. Yet, we found ourselves in two distinct realms, the soft clinking of silverware, the sole sound bridging the gap between us. Once I had finished clearing the dishes, I found myself at the sink, gazing out the window onto the street. It was then that I noticed Owen, strolling with his dog beneath the glow of the streetlights. He lifted his gaze toward the house. Our gazes locked, and in that fleeting moment, I experienced it all. The hope, the remorse, the deep longing for a life that may forever elude me. I averted my eyes hastily, heart racing, and clutched the counter until my knuckles blanched. A decision loomed before me. The unfolding events would not be mere happenstance. They would be intentional. I stood at a crossroads, contemplating the identity I was about to embrace. I ascended the stairs and settled into a chair opposite Adam in the bedroom. He was absorbed in scrolling through emails on his phone. "I think we need to talk," I said. He gazed upward, weariness etched on his face. What weighed on his mind?
Us.
Everything. He paused, placing his phone aside. "All right." I parted my lips to say something, yet the words eluded me for a moment. There was an overwhelming abundance, an excess of time, an excess of silence, an excess of everything that had accumulated between us. I finally confessed, "I don't feel as though I'm truly living. Instead, I feel as if I'm merely surviving, going through the motions, and I'm not sure how much longer I can endure it." He gazed at me, a flicker of doubt in his eyes. "Are you suggesting that you want to go?" "I'm not sure," I replied with sincerity. "What I'm saying is that something must shift." He leaned back, exhaling gently. "You're not content."
No, y confessa.
"And I doubt you are as well." The dialogue concluded without hostility. There were no blame games, no doors slammed shut. Two individuals stood in silence, their gazes fixed on the void that lay between them, a realization dawning that it was indeed there. I refrained from bringing up Aiden. Not at this moment. That would come in due time. At this moment, I had to delve into my own understanding before attempting to articulate it to others. Yet one truth was clear to me. This tale, in its evolving form, had not reached its conclusion. Not just yet. The ensuing days were steeped in contemplation. I withdrew from both Adam and Aiden, not driven by anger, but by a pressing need for clarity. Solitude became my companion. I wandered through the stillness of early mornings, found refuge in the hushed corners of the library, and poured my thoughts into the pages of my journal. For the first time in years, I confronted my own reflection with unflinching honesty. I acknowledged the loneliness that had crept in, the way the silence in my marriage had carved out a void within me. I also recognized that Aiden had turned into a mirror, revealing the gaps in my life, yet he was not the solution to all my questions. On a tranquil afternoon, I rapped softly on Aiden's door. His expression was one of surprise, yet he remained silent as I offered him a neatly folded letter. "Please read it later," I urged softly. "I require solitude to reconstruct my essence, not relying on others, but through my own efforts." So I turned and left. Later that night, Adam and I found ourselves seated at the kitchen table. I shared the truth with him, omitting some details but providing enough substance. He absorbed it. For once, he genuinely listened. For the first time in what felt like ages, we engaged in conversation. Not as mere acquaintances, but as two individuals contemplating the possibility of reconstructing a shared future. I did not choose Aiden. I embraced healing. In that journey, I rediscovered who I truly am.